FITCE and ICT, and the two presidents, Andrea Penza and Maurizio Maier, for inviting ETNO to speak at your international congress here in Palermo. Also because this is the first time that I speak in Italy after I've been appointed as chairman of ETNO. And let me start with a concrete proposal. I've changed a little bit my introduction. I think that we should start to work much closely together. And it would be good if we could sign an agreement of cooperation among us. We need you, and I think it would be nice whether in the next days, the next week, we could stay in touch and try to check what we can do together. Because I agree with what has been said by my other previous speakers, that the association of people are very important. And so therefore this is this proposal that I make to you today. Bridging the digital divide, which is not only geographical but also social, is a precondition for Europe to benefit from the internet economy. It has always been a key priority for ETNO. ETNO members, through their investment in new networks and their inclusion and digital literacy initiatives, are addressing both the social and geographical ones. Just to give you some figures on us, we represent 250 billion revenue, and 12% of this revenue are for investment. Now, regarding the first generation broadband, at the end of 2010, DSL access was available to 95.3% of the EU population, up from 94% 1 year earlier. DSL coverage in rural areas, on the other hand, reached 82.5% of the rural population. As highlighted in the first EU digital scoreboard released last June, trends in fixed and wireless coverage between 2005 and 2010 suggest that the 2013 target of providing all EU households with a basic broadband connection will be achieved through a combination of fixed and wireless platforms. ETNO members have played an important role to achieving this objective by bringing broadband connectivity to populations in non-densely inhabited areas, for example, in the form of public-private partnerships. Moving now to fast and ultra-fast networks, the 2020 broadband targets of the digital agenda represent, however, an even more challenging target, in particular for less profitable areas. Let me try to say to you and to clarify what is, I think this is a good occasion for us to sum up also the position of the main European operators, which are not only incumbents, but are also, we represent also the main new entrants, because all our members are competing and are present both at their domestic market, but also in other European and international markets. Investment in fiber to the home or to the building is held back by uncertainty around demand and the willingness of the consumer to pay a premium, as well as by the high costs involved, in particular for civil works and in-house wiring. Investment in upgraded cable networks and VDSL fiber networks, which are less costly to deploy than FTTH, is meanwhile progressing in a number of EU markets. ETNO believes that investment needed to deploy broadband infrastructure for upgrading the traditional networks and for the deployment of the new NGN should come primarily from the private sector, wherever commercially viable, to avoid any distortion of competition. As a general rule, the use of public funding may be useful in those cases where commercial plans of private companies are not in place in order to bring broadband and all the related social and economic benefits to remote areas. In other words, public funding should never crowd out private investments. And you know how this debate has been important in several countries in Europe. Public authorities have also a key role to play to encourage private investments by reducing civil works costs and stimulating consumer demand for new services. Our members are committed to the ambitious targets of the digital agenda for fast and ultra-fast broadband infrastructure and contribute to meeting the targets either through own deployments, in cooperation with other private partners, or in private-public partnership as best adapted to market needs and realities. For instance, in Italy, Telecom Italia signed a partnership with the autonomous province of Trento for the deployment of an NGM that aims to provide broadband fiber optic access to over 150,000 customers, which is about 60% of the whole province population. The investment will be achieved through the public-private partnership instrument, creating a special purpose entity with a 60 million capital. This is the first time that an entity is established to carry out an NGA infrastructure in Italy. And we believe that the Trento case could be a best practice also and could be followed also outside Italy in other European countries. But there should certainly not be a one-size-fits-all solution. Any approach to NGA should closely reflect the local market and competition realities. Co-investment, this is another word, magic word, which has been heavily debated in Europe and several countries. Is certainly one valid option, and it is already happening in some countries, for instance in the Netherlands or more recently in France. Such cooperation model should be driven by the markets, needs of the player involved and reflect local realities. On the contrary, to impose such models against the interest of players in the market or to force a change in the structure of the sector would risk putting investment on hold. Defining the best framework for broadband network deployment should not be disconnected from the overall trends and economic development of our sector. Despite an overall increase in data traffic volumes and broadband take-up, revenues of telecom operators are declining, endangering their capacity for investment. The overall growth of the telecom sector in Europe is negative in 2009 and in 2010, and probably this will continue also in 2011. Just to give you a figure, revenues for the EU electronic communication sector were down from 350 billion in 2008 to 332 billion in 2009, which means that our sector as a whole has lost more than 5% in 1 year. And if we count also 2010 and 2011, this loss, you can imagine the dimension of the loss of our sector. On the contrary, traffic data is increasing by 100% over mobile networks and 35% over fixed networks, mainly driven by over-the-top applications and increased usage of new mobile devices allowing access to bandwidth-hungry applications. At the same time, there is an increasing pressure from alternative operators to reduce wholesale access prices, which will certainly flow through to even lower retail broadband access subscription. To conclude, let me insist that ETNO members believe that an investment recovery is possible and the right conditions. But what are the right conditions for us? First of all, the overall sustainability of the current economic model of the Internet needs to be addressed. We need to find a new equilibrium which would encourage all players of the value chain to contribute to the challenge ahead. Secondly, in line with the new instruments, included in the revised EU directives, the Commission and BEREC, through the new notification process, should encourage national regulators to make full use of the more proportionate and targeted regulatory instruments. Regulators should take into account varying competitive situations within different geographic areas in a member state. They should apply appropriate symmetric obligations for all NGA investors to provide a level playing field and ensure choice for all end users. Regulation must allow for more flexibility in pricing access to NGA network, as well as mechanisms for investors and access seekers to share the risks of NGA rollout. During the transition period to new fiber networks, the price of current wholesale access products should remain predictable and consistent with current regulatory practice. A study that by Plum recently carried out by ETNO demonstrated that artificially reducing wholesale access prices for copper broadband networks would undermine the NGA investment case inter alia by discouraging consumers to take up high-speed broadband. Finally, achieving the digital agenda targets and bridging further the digital divide will require a mix of technologies. Mobile broadband network will play a key role in many areas, in particular in remote and rural areas. The opening of the digital dividend frequency bands to mobile services will accelerate the deployment of broadband networks in rural and remote areas. This band would require 4 times less investment than in higher bands and require up to 3 times less base stations. This is why ETNO relies on the European Parliament and the Council to support a swift adoption of the Commission decision on radio spectrum policy program. And this, if I may say, Roberto Viola has played a very important role to open up the digital dividend band to mobile services and identify additional spectrum capacity. Achieving the objectives of the digital agenda is not only essential for the sector, it is a driver for the EU economy as a whole, and it is a key instrument to realize the vision of the EU 2020 strategy. 2020 is already tomorrow, so it is urgent we find the right approach. With the involvement of all players, ETNO members are keen to continue playing their role. Thank you for your attention.